All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this free webinar session presented by Vivid Reports Business Intelligence. Today's topic is about their product, Vivid CPM, and we'll be uncovering the secrets of seamless data reporting and analysis. We estimate that today's webinar will take up about an hour of your time, including some time at the end for Q&A. Our webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. We will also have a webinar feedback form in the chat. It would really help us out to provide you with better demos and webinars in the future if you could take a minute to fill it out. With that being said, I'd like everyone to submit their questions through the question panel during the session or wait until the end for the Q&A. Please remember to stay muted during the session. Now I'd like to introduce you to Christine Boisvert, Training and Product Specialist at Vivid Reports.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Sabre, for inviting me to perform this webinar with your team. I'm excited to teach you a little bit more about Vivid Reports. I'm very passionate about this product, and hopefully you'll really like it. So a little bit about me and the agenda today. So I've been with Vivid now for about 6 years. I wear a couple hats around here. I do a lot of the demonstrations, technical sales tasks for the company, but I'm also a report trainer. And, I really enjoy doing both because it makes me a better salesperson. It keeps me in very close touch with the product. I can get some feedback from clients as far as new features, new functionality, etc. So what I've got planned for the next, perhaps it might be about 45 minutes. I'm going to do a full demonstration of our Vivid CPM product. So our Vivid CPM product is all about financial reporting, being able to drill down, being able to reproduce these financial statements very efficiently and very accurately. We also have a budgeting module. So the budgeting module is an add-on piece to our financial reporting module, and it's really geared towards taking control of your budget spreadsheets. Of course, at the end, if you have any questions, I'm happy to stay on the call and answer any questions you may have. So a little bit about who we are. So we've been around for a long time. We've been around since 1999. Our product is very mature. It's very stable. It's very flexible. One of the things I always like to mention during this part of the slide is our team here at Vivid. We offer excellent customer support and services to both our clients and our partners. We want to build long-lasting relationships with both our customers and our partners. We want to be responsive, being available to answer your questions. We realize there's things in Vivid that you don't do often and they're easily forgotten. So we welcome those conversations, and we typically try to respond to our clients within 1 hour. So we sell 2 products. So again, our webinar today is focused on the CPM product. So CPM stands for Corporate Performance Management, and it's essentially all about financial reporting. It's all about your general ledger accounts, dimensions, building that hierarchy or reporting tree. And then within our CPM product, like I mentioned, we have an add-on module for budgeting and forecasting. It's a really nice, simple tool to take control of your budget spreadsheets. Just to touch on Vivid Flex. So Vivid Flex would be similar to SQL reporting services, Power BI, or Crystal Reports. It's an ad hoc reporting tool where you can pick and choose what tables or what SQL views you want to pull from and build your full custom report. Both products are 100% Microsoft Excel based, which I find is an advantage. Right out of the gate, clients are working with something they're comfortable with. Training is drastically shortened because they have this knowledge. And again, it makes the transition to a new tool much easier and much faster. When we talk about the Vivid CPM implementation, again, it's very short. It's Microsoft Excel based. Usually the finance team will already be very well versed in Microsoft Excel. We usually budget about 8 hours of training is required to learn Vivid Reports. It's a really short amount of time. By the end of our first training session, you're at a point where you may be able to even complete your first income statement within Vivid. We record all of our training sessions. We provide you with access to our portal. You can download those recordings, keep them on file, watch them again if you forgot something. If you need to train someone new on Vivid Reports, those recordings are really valuable. These are just some of the features that come with Vivid. I'll be going through all of these during the demo, but just to highlight a few: reporting trees, that hierarchy of your organization, the consolidation of your organizations is built in what we call panels. We also have very powerful drill down capabilities. You can really get into the meat and potatoes of your data. You can drill into the accounts, the transactions. You can even drill into scanned AP images. So you're spending more time analyzing the data and less time compiling the data. When you distribute these Vivid reports, you can even distribute what we call Vivid Viewer licenses. So these are users where you can provide them an Excel spreadsheet. They have the ability to refresh the report with the most current values, or go back and look at history of prior months, prior years, and give them the ability to drill down into the GL activity. They can see exactly where their expenses have gone. You can make your management team a little more accountable to their financial results. We also have a web application. So the benefit of a web application is that you do not require Excel. You do not require anything installed on the workstation, and it can be used on any device. So if you have any Mac computers, iPads, Android devices, our web application is simply a web link. You can use Google Chrome or Safari. It's just a web link. They can log in and they'll be able to see their published reports, refresh and drill down. So shifting a little bit about our budgeting module. So usually when clients are searching for an alternative budgeting solution, it's because their budget spreadsheets, well, first of all, they're doing all of their budget process in Excel today, which is really the most common way. Probably 95% of organizations out there are doing some form of budgeting in Excel. But this can be labor intensive. You have these large spreadsheets that are linked one to another to another. They break easily. They're very hard to update. They're very time consuming to compile. They're very time consuming to consolidate. And they're time consuming to get that information back in a format to get it back into your accounting system. So with Vivid, we streamline all of those time consuming tasks. It'll still be an Excel-based budgeting process, but we will take over all of that heavy lifting. Compiling the data, capturing the data, reporting off of that data. And then, of course, we add additional features such as being able to forecast. A lot of companies don't forecast because it's so time-consuming. It's very labor-intensive to the finance team. With Vivid, it's seamless. So we can not only do your traditional annual budget, but you can do forecasts, rolling budgets, multi-year plans, etc. We have additional features to calculate your budget or spread it based on certain trends or certain calculations like FTEs, square feet. We can attach notes or assumptions to your budgets. We even keep track of all of the historical changes that have been made to the budget. Of course, you can lock down a budget. You can copy last year's budget into this year. You can even preload a budget or preload a forecast with actuals. So what's included with Vivid on that first license? So whether you have one company set up in Business Central or 5, 10, 20, 40 entities set up in Business Central, we can integrate with all of them. If you have international companies, you need to report in different currencies, we can do all that translation for you. We can do all the consolidations into your functional currency. We have really cool features for report check and report automation. The report check is useful when you want to make sure your report balances, make sure you've included all of your accounts. Report automation is a great way to distribute reports very quickly to your management team. Another thing we do with our support contract is we include 8 hours of support. So that's with your annual subscription. You automatically get a fresh eight hours of support directly with us to just answer any of those questions you may have. Again, like I said before, there are things you do in Vivid that it's just once in a blue moon, or your budget process, it's only done once a year. So you may have forgotten how to do some of these little things in Vivid. Just give us a call. We're more than happy to talk to our clients. We have very few clients that ever reach 8 hours of support per year. And that to me is a testament of the product. When I started here 6 years ago, first thing I said is, let me get on some support calls. Well, I was pleasantly surprised at how little support calls we get. The product just works. It runs well, it's stable, it's easy to use, it's easy to maintain. So from an infrastructure perspective, what do you need to get Vivid installed? So Vivid is a data warehouse. You do require SQL Server. Now, depending on your organization and how your network has been set up, you may or may not have an existing SQL environment. If you have one on premise, we can put the Vivid environment there. If you have your own SQL environment in your own private cloud environment, we can put Vivid there. Or we also offer hosting services to host the Vivid database for you. Once we've set up the data warehouse, what we do is we establish a scheduled connection between Business Central and Vivid. Usually we'll set that to be every hour. So when you're refreshing a report in Excel, a Vivid report in Excel, you're refreshing off of the data warehouse. Our database, our data warehouse is very optimized. You're going to get maximum performance. We want our reports to be refreshing very, very quickly. And we're really proud of that. Over the years, the database or the data warehouse has evolved. It's been optimized. It's been perfected. It runs very well. Usually, typically the integration between Business Central and Vivid, we want that to complete in less than a minute. So you can run ad hoc updates. It's month end. You made a journal entry. You need to refresh your reports right away. You can perform those ad hoc updates, and they typically take less than a minute. One of the other things I always like to mention with Vivid is if you're considering you're not on Business Central and you're on something else and you're considering moving to Business Central, Vivid is also transferable. Okay, because it's a data warehouse, we can disconnect that data warehouse from one ERP to another. We've got Business Central is definitely popular within our client base. We've got a lot of clients moving to Business Central. So when you look at the cost of Vivid reports, we will always ask you, how many licenses do you need and what kind? We offer named licenses only, not concurrent. And we will first always ask you is, well, how many builders do you need? These are the folks that will be responsible to build your Vivid reports, balance them, adjust them, and make sure all new accounts have been added. If you added a new entity, a new department, you want to make sure that's all incorporated into your reports. Those are your builders. After that, you can decide, do you want to roll out any viewer licenses? Keep in mind, a recipient of a Vivid report Excel spreadsheet does not need a license to view the data. It's no different than had you manually keyed in the values in Excel. If you want to give them drill down capabilities, at that point, you need to consider giving them a viewer license. And we have different price points for our licenses, depending on the features and the functionality you want to give them. Now, as part of our webinar with Sabre, we're offering a promotion to any attendee. So if you do decide to buy a Vivid Report Builder license, will offer you a Vivid Viewer license for free. This offer is just for the webinar attendees, and it expires June 30th. There's my contact information. Before I jump into the full demonstration, here's my contact information. I'm just going to pause here and check if there are any questions before I get straight into the demo. Okay. I'll just assume there's no question. All right. I'll assume here everybody can see my Excel spreadsheet. It's just a blank Excel spreadsheet. There's my Vivid CPM tab here. It's a small Excel add-in that needs to be installed on the workstation. We do support remote desktop, Citrix, VPN connections, working from home, all of that. I'm going to go ahead and click on Login. So these logins are typically managed by the finance team. You can set security to any Vivid login, making sure they're only seeing what they've been given access to. I'm going to go ahead and open up a very basic Excel spreadsheet. This is, a very basic income statement. You have your current month information, maybe budget, a variance comparing to last year. And then you have your year-to-date information over here, again, saying this year, budget, variance, and last year. Over here, these are my basic Excel calculations, so you're already familiar with that. Here's a variance, simple Excel calculation again. Over here, this is what's coming from Vivid. Please note here that we do not store any formulas in the individual cells. This is a key difference between Vivid and other Excel-based solutions. If you have to build an Excel formula in every single cell, to me that defeats the purpose of an efficient reporting solution. That's a lot of formulas to manage, times however many tabs. I'm going to get into the details of the report momentarily. I'll show you what a finished report looks like first, but then I'll show you why and how we configure our reports and why they're low maintenance. I'm going to go ahead and click on this control panel button. These are your prompts. You can set up 5 different kinds of prompts on a report. I've only activated 2 here. This is my reporting tree. These can be tied to your Business Central entities, departments, cost centers, dimensions, things like that. You set this up centrally. If you need to make a change to it, you make a change to it once, and it's going to roll down to all of your reports immediately. I'm going to go ahead and click on New York State, and I want to run the report for the month of July. I can also prompt for the year, for the company, for the currency, and for the data type as well. So do I want to see all budget numbers, all forecast numbers, all actuals, etc., or a combination? Let's go ahead and refresh. Now it's going out to the data warehouse and it's pulling in these results. You can see these are they're static numbers. You can share this report because it's already been refreshed, and you can email it out to as many people as you want. They do not need a Vivid license to see these values. Okay. If you want to give them the ability to drill down on their own, that's when you need to consider a Vivid license. So once the data is refreshed, here's your drill down capabilities. I'm going to click this drill down. This is your first drill down window. There's 34,679. There's 34,679. It's a roll up of these GL accounts. If I want to pivot this information and I want to look at the totals, perhaps based on location, I can simply click this drop down list and say, show me the totals based on location. Or show me the total based on the natural accounts. Or go back and look at all the segments. If I click on any of these accounts, there's the transactions. This is the original source of these transactions is Business Central. But remember, we pull that information from Business Central into our data warehouse. You can see as I click these other cells or these other comments, these transactions change. If I want to see all the transactions for all of these accounts, I'll simply click on this little button right here, There's all the transactions, and you can export this to Excel, simply a data dump, and you can do some kind of reconciliation or VLOOKUP, etc. Now, we work with high volume environments where you may have tens of thousands of transactions. That's not a problem. Like I said, our data warehouse runs very efficiently. Okay. You'll notice when I click these other cells, see how I just click these other cells and the window automatically refreshes. Perhaps I need to drill into an AP invoice. So you can see I'm on the 11,221 and I'm drilling into an AP invoice for Syracuse. If I click over here on this little icon, there's the image of the invoice. We don't store the images in our database. We simply link our transaction to wherever the image is stored. Now, we integrate with numerous paperless AP solutions. That's just the main question we would ask you if you are using a paperless AP solution. The question we'll always ask is, where are those images and can we connect to them? Okay. Now that was the basic drill down window. Let's look at drill across. This is your trend analysis. If I click on that, I ran this report for July of 2022. There's 11,221. This is July of 2022. There's the 11,221. This is what I did in June, in May, in April, this year versus last year. I can have as many years of history in this window as I have in my accounting system. I can add budget forecast information into this window very easily. You have a really nice chart that gives you some comparatives. You can even drill down into the accounts, into the transactions directly from this window. I can even flip it to a timeline view. So how have I done? Whoops, let's flip it to this one. How have I done since the beginning of time on this particular expense? You'll notice when I click these other cells, if I go back up to my revenue, I can check, well, my drafting revenue, am I going in the right direction? Am I trending in the right direction? Year over year, month over month. So the idea with Vivid is we want to give you all that information right at your fingertips so you're spending more time assessing and analyzing your fiscal results versus compiling spreadsheets, making sure they balance, things like that. If you look at this variance here, I have a $455 variance. I'm simply using Excel conditional formatting to highlight any variances that are greater than whatever this threshold is. So the benefit of using an Excel-based solution is now you've opened up all this wonderful features, functionality that comes with Excel, charts, graphs. There's oodles and oodles of information out there on Google on how to build charts and graphs and use all these cool features that come with Excel. When I'm looking at this variance, well, how do I know which department or which account is creating this variance? Because this is a roll-up. It may have a very highly summarized report, total income minus total cost of sales equals your net profit. You're comparing this year versus budget. You have a variance. Well, how do you know? You know, it's a really summarized report. You can look at drill compare over here, and you can say, well, I want to compare column E, which is my actuals, with column F, which is my budget. I can sort the variance, and I can right away see, well, Blueprints Buffalo, they didn't meet their revenue targets. They were a little bit under. Okay, and likewise, I can see that Blueprints New York, they were way over budget. They had a really good month. Okay. A few other sample reports I'll show you. If you look at something like this again is where I'm talking, where you can integrate a chart or graph. You can start making KPIs, dashboards. This is just a basic Excel chart tied to this refreshable, vivid information. You can still drill down. So if you click on this and click drill down, You can still look at all of these transactions. Okay? Imagine if you had any kind of board reports that you had to present. The ability to immediately drill down into those results, to me, would be quite powerful. If you look at something like this, there's a 12-month trend report with a percent column. If you look at this percent column, it's a simple Excel calculation. I have an if statement simply to avoid the divide by zero error. But if you look at this information here, I can make it a little bit bigger in case it's really small. If you look at this information, this is all coming from Vivid. You can see there's no formulas here. You get into the total, okay, there's a formula here, and there's a formula here. But as this gets refreshed, these calculations automatically refresh. So let's get into how do we build these reports. If you look at these rows, these are the same rows that I used on that first report. So let's unhide some columns and dig into the building process. Vivid uses these comments, these red notes or comments in Excel. You don't need to learn this XML code. You just need to know that it's there. These comments are tied to building information here on the toolbar. Only report builders have access to this section of the toolbar. I'm going to go into Filter Builder. Think of Filter Builder like a filing cabinet. In your filing cabinet, you're going to have a category or a file folder. You may have a file folder for income statement, balance sheet, summary format, etc. I've got my income statement here highlighted in yellow. Within income statement, I have 35 rows or 35 filters. You can see that consulting is highlighted in yellow because that's where my cursor is. It's on the consulting row. So it went to that filter right away. This is how consulting has been configured. So I can change the description. So here, let me put in my name here, and you're going to see how that's going to flow through on the rest of my reports. But let's look at this. This is the expression. This is the area where you're tying your Business Central accounts and dimensions into my filters. So you're saying segment 1. Think of segment 1 or S1 is your GL accounts, your main GL accounts. It's between this number and this number. If I add any accounts within this range, they will automatically be added onto my report. If I add accounts in Business Central that fall outside of this range, I do need to go in here and make a change. So I'm going to widen this range. So if I click Test, now it validates this expression and it tells me that I could potentially have 57, up to 57 accounts rolled up into Consulting-Christine. Let's go ahead and save that. Okay, it's been saved. Let's close this. Now let's simply refresh the report. Let's refresh that. So I'm just highlighting this row so that you can see it happens so fast. I don't know if you noticed that these numbers all changed all automatically. And notice again, there's no formulas here. And you'll notice here, there's my name. It pops up automatically. Let's move back to this report. Remember, I started with this report. I have not touched anything on this spreadsheet. I am simply going to refresh. See how my name pops up there automatically and this number changed. That's one of the key differences of Vivid, is having that centralized configuration. You make the change once and it rolls down to all of your reports immediately. We want to make your Excel spreadsheets as low maintenance as possible. Now, when you're distributing these reports, let's say, if you look at my reporting tree here, this is my reporting tree. Perhaps I need to create a report for every single one of these departments and send it off. That's a lot of spreadsheets to maintain. So with Vivid's automation tool, you can replicate this report across as many departments or locations as you have. So if you look at this, I have a job here for New York State. Within that job, I have 4 tasks. These are the tabs that we're going to create in a new workbook. So I'm going to go ahead and click run and see what it does. You'll see it creates a new workbook. Have a look down here. See what it's doing? It's building all these tabs. So if you need to ever make a change to your report, you need to add a row, you need to add a column. You don't have to do it 25, 30 times. You're going to do it once and you rerun your automation job, and it's going to take that change and it's going to roll it to all of your reports. Okay. So there's my, I'll just show you the finished report. You can email this automatically. It can be set up as a PDF. You can save it to SharePoint. It's just part of configuring the job. Now, one more thing I want to mention before I jump into budgeting is the report check function. So the report check function is a really nice feature. We go through this in detail with the report builders because we want to make sure your reports are balanced. And we want to make sure that if they're not balanced, that you're aware of it right away. And if they're not balanced, you can find these accounts very quickly. So we can check for missing or duplicate accounts. So normally what we do in training, let's go ahead and refresh this report. Go down below. There's your net profit line. It's an Excel formula. Normally what we'll do is you're going to create a filter in Vivid for all of your P&L accounts, like a very wide range. So something like that. And when you refresh that row from Vivid, it's going to come up with a total. You want this total and this total to be the same. If they are not, then you know you're out of balance. Then we go and we start using the report check function to find which account is missing. So those are just some of the little checks and balances we go through during training to make sure that you're comfortable with maintaining these reports and we have the proper tools in place to find anything that may be creating an imbalance. I'll pause here and see if there are any questions before I jump into budgeting. Okay. All right. So now we're going to flip our mindsets a little bit. Everything that I've showed you so far has been all about pulling data out of Business Central, pulling the actuals, rolling it up, and refreshing results. Now with budgeting, we want to capture Excel values, Excel budget values, and push them into the Vivid database. So you're using Excel as your front end, but you're pushing that important information into the data warehouse so that then you let Vivid take care of the consolidating, rolling it up, exporting it, and perhaps you want to import it into your accounting system, etc. So if you look at what I have on the screen here, this is what I'll say it's kind of a typical budget spreadsheet that we see. You have your actuals, which is completely refreshable. If you don't have Vivid and you have to populate all of these actuals for your budget spreadsheets times however many departments you have, that's a lot of work. That is a lot of linking, that's could be error prone. But with Vivid, it's just automatic. As you post things in Business Central, this information is going to get refreshed automatically. Then over here, you have a section for forecast and a section for your annual budget. I shaded those areas in yellow. It's just a visual cue to the end user that, hey, I want you to enter values in those sections. Anything in yellow, that is your cue that I want you to enter totals or values. So this spreadsheet has been configured for New York City. That's my department. That's my location. These are my rows. Now, just to start, at a very simple level, I'm going to go in. I'm on my consulting row for January. I can enter any amount I want. You can put a calculation, it can be a static number, it doesn't matter. Now on the toolbar over here, this is your budgeting section. Okay. We want to click the commit button. So the commit button will take information that is on your spreadsheet. It validates it because first it's got to check, is the budget open? Do you have access to this area of the budget? And does the GL account exist? Because essentially behind the scenes, we are saving these budget values to a full GL account value. So it'd be the dimensions plus the GL account included. Then it tells you I've got one budget cell ready to be committed. So let's click the review button. So where is this budget value going? I'm going to be saving it to this GL account, to this fiscal year, into this period, into this budget, and there's your value. So I'm going to go ahead and say, looks good. Click the commit button, click yes. So now I have saved that value into the data warehouse. I can also attach notes. So over here, you have your comments section. So you could attach a note and here say testing notes with for Sabre. We'll say for Sabre, for Sabre webinar. I apologize for that. Of course, somebody had to come knock on the door right in the middle of a demonstration. All right. So let's go ahead and make a change here. So I'm going to change this value to 4,800. So if I click on that, click commit. Let's commit that value. We also keep full audit history of who made what change to the budget. So I originally saved it as $2,500. And less than a minute later or a minute later, I changed it to 4,800. And there's the file path, right down to which spreadsheet did this come from. And, the best example I can give you, the other day I had a client who she had just started with the organization a few months ago, and it was a budget process has now come up. And she says to me, Christine, I have no idea where these budget spreadsheets are. Can you help me? So we went into the audit and I was able to quickly tell her, well, it seems like most of your budget values are coming from this file. So having that audit is really valuable. You can really see who's made what change to the budget. Let's look at the distributor. The distributor tool is a great way to quickly populate your budgets or your budget values based on trends. So if you look at this window, I've got budgets, forecasts, and actuals. I can click on the actuals, click the account, and click the transactions directly from this window. I can populate my forecast amounts over here. I can just simply click those and enter values. But let's go ahead and put in an annual amount. So there's my annual budget for $2,400. It splits it evenly at $200 a month. Let's have a look at this graph. There's my flat $200 a month. These are my actuals. I may have some seasonalities. I'm just going to move this over to the left here. I may have some seasonalities in my business. I may be busier in the summer versus winter. I want to spread my budget on the same way as my actuals. So I'm going to click over here and say, spread my budget based on my actuals. And I'll click this little calculator and you can see now my budget values have changed. Now I can quickly see that, ooh, maybe my budget's a little too low. I'm going to increase it by 12%. Click the little calculator. You can see now I'm more in line and I'll click the apply button over here. You can see how it takes these values, it populates them in the cells, and now I can click the down arrow. Now I'm on my next row of my budget and I'm on freight revenue. Let's put in $12,000. I can leave it as an even distribution, and you can see I click apply, and it populated those values here. You can also spread budgets based on driver sets. So if you look over here, I have a driver set for the number of days in the month. So we start our driver sets with the letter DS. You can have up to 99 driver sets. And then over here, you can see I have 31 days in January, 29 days in February, 31 days in March, etc. If you go over here on my row here, I've got an equipment rental line. Perhaps I'm paying a daily rate. So of course, January is going to be higher than February. So let's go in here and say, well, my average spend on my equipment rental is $3,600 a year. So by default, Vivid does an even distribution. I want to change that and say, calculate it based on this driver set. So this little drop-down list populates based on what you entered over here. And say, recalculate. So you can see that January is higher than February. So you can use like number of FTEs, square footage, number of pay periods in a month. Those are just some of the more common driver sets that I've seen. Let's go ahead and apply that. Okay, so we did all of this for New York City. Okay, it's all committed. Then I want to do the exact same thing for a different department. If you did not have Vivid, again, that would be a lot of work. You got to populate your actuals. You're going to copy this spreadsheet, right? And you're going to link it to because you want a total, things like that. With Vivid, all you're going to do is click the control panel button and now say, pick Buffalo. I was on New York City. I want Buffalo. Refresh. It's refreshing all of these actuals based on Buffalo. It wipes out this information because that information I entered earlier was for New York City. Now let's go ahead and enter some values. Let's commit that. Now, you're in finance. You want to see, how am I doing overall? Again, to consolidate New York City plus Buffalo, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of linking. With Vivid, all you're going to do is click this control panel and say, show me New York State. And you can see that New York State is a roll-up of these three cities. Let's refresh that. And if I look at this $6,000, you can see $6,000, there's 6,000, there's no linking. I'm going to just click on drill down, and there's the total of 4,800 for New York City, 1,200 for Buffalo, and there's my assumption, my notes that I entered specifically for New York City. So consolidations are seamless. It's automatic. All we want to do when we're implementing the budgeting module is we're focusing on the most detailed budget values. Let Vivid do the heavy lifting as far as consolidating, totaling, etc. There's one last piece I want to show you on budgeting, and then we'll open it up for questions. And that's what we call budget transactions. Let's look at this tab. Well, before we go to that here, if you look at this row, my commercial construction revenue line item. Notice it's not in yellow, it is gray, because that row, you cannot budget on this tab on that row. It's simply there for information purposes only. I want my sales project manager to tell me which project he or she is anticipating closing in the new fiscal year. So there's my commercial construction revenue line item. There's my actuals. But these are transactions. We've identified these rows as Vivid budget transaction rows. I want him or her to list off which projects. So they're going to build a new library. That's going to be at 555 Main Street. And it's going to start in January. It's going to continue in February, and it wraps up in March. And then perhaps I got another project. So let's go project 3. I'm going to build a new school. It is at, 6th Avenue South. That's going to start in February, and it finishes in March. So let's commit this. So these are the grand totals of all of my projects, but I'm capturing both the totals and the details here. So let's commit that. So think of marketing campaigns, travel budget, capital expenses, things like that. You want to give as much information about your budget as possible so that, when you're looking at your income statement 6 months down the road and you're looking at this budget column and you're like, why is that budget value so much higher than last year? Well, if you capture these budget transactions at the time of budget entry, you can drill down. So I've committed them. I'll just double check. I forget if I did commit. I'll just go ahead and commit it again. Go back to this one. Let's just simply click refresh and let's pay attention to this section here. Again, there's no linking. There's no budget. There's no links to other spreadsheets. I'm just going to refresh. So now if I click on this value, click drill down, there's the total, but there's the detail. There's the budget transactions. There's only the 2 rows because that's January. And there's the commercial office building and the library, but if I click here, there's the library and the school for February. So all of that information is consolidated seamlessly. I'm just showing you this on the same workbook, but it doesn't need to be in the same workbook. It could be a completely different report. It could be, very summarized report, but when you drill down, you're going to see all of that detail. So Vivid Reports, our budgeting tool, it's very cost effective. It's not very expensive. It just allows you to take control of your Excel spreadsheets. It's not a complete overhaul of your existing budgeting process. Normally, during the implementation, we will ask you, what do your budget spreadsheets look like today? Can we reuse them? Perhaps we can reuse them, and essentially we go through the process of what I call vividizing an existing Excel spreadsheet that you use today. During training, I don't necessarily want to go through in training how to make things bold, how to put some, shading, boxes, things like that. You've already built all that. I want to focus on activating Vivid in the appropriate rows and columns. All right. That is what I wanted to cover today. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments? Would love some feedback.
And it looks like Nicholas is typing here.
Okay.
All right. Well, it looks like he asked, how easily can you slice data from your different dimensions?
It's very easy. So let me explain. I'll go into a little bit of the data warehouse of Vivid. So this is the list of my accounts. So there's my account structure. So when you're integrating with Business Central, the first section of your account structure is the account number, the GL account number. Then the second section is your global dimension 1. Third section is global dimension 2. And if you have additional dimensions, we can integrate up to 9 dimensions. We split those into S1, S2, S3, up to S10. Okay. So when you're building your filters or your roll-ups, so let's go back into Filter Builder here. It's where we build our roll-ups. Go into that consulting. So this section here is essentially SQL code. So I can get very detailed or I can be very summarized. So if I say S1 is like, single quote, 40%, that means give me everything that starts with 40. And then if I want to say, well, I want all of those GL accounts, but I need to exclude a specific department, for example. So I'll say, I want to exclude department number 15. You can say, and S3 is not equal to 15. And click test. So this whole area, I don't know how technical you are, Nicholas, but this is essentially SQL code. And we go through this in detail. We want to train. You don't have to be an IT person to learn this at all. We go through this with you and your team. Typically, it'll be the finance team, and we will build these roll-ups with you. There's all kinds of different parameters here. We have and, or, between, in, like, greater than, less than. All of those functions are available in our filter builder. Please let me know if that didn't answer your question. Any other questions?
It looks like Nicholas said, I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
He has another question here. How does implementation work with an on-prem solution that is technically in the cloud?
With an on-prem Business Central environment, but in your own like private cloud environment, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So normally what we would do, because you own your own Business Central environment, we would look at, can we populate or house the Vivid data warehouse on the same environment as your Business Central environment? I'm assuming that your existing Business Central environment is on your own SQL environment. Please let me know if that's not the case. But both Business Central and Vivid, the Vivid database, would typically reside on the same server. The Vivid database is typically very small. It's not intense on your server resources. And then what we'll do is we establish a read-only connection to the Business Central data. We only need the general ledger information. And then we'll establish a scheduled connection. Like I said, it runs every hour. It's just a SQL job. And it will pull in what's changed in Business Central since the last time you ran the update. So we'll pull in GL accounts, GL balances, dimensions, transactions, etc.
How compatible with older BC versions is Vivid solution?
Well, we have not come across one that we have not been compatible with as of yet. So, I hate to say all, because of course there can always be exceptions, but I'm quite confident that we'd have no problems integrating with your Business Central environment. And, just to do our due diligence, I'd probably want to schedule a call we have a senior software engineer who's very familiar with the integration with Business Central, and perhaps he may want to just have a quick look at your data or your test environment, whatever environment you want us to look at, and just confirm that there'd be no problem integrating.
Is there any ranges on the cost of Vivid ongoing cost? I'm assuming it's a subscription style model.
Yes, it's an annual subscription, and it's based on the total licenses purchased. And server, we have our price list is very a la carte. You only buy what you need. You can always add more licenses down the road. You can always add more modules. We have different modules like the drill to image, being able to drill into a scanned copy of an AP invoice. That's an additional module that can always be added later. It's the annual subscription is always, or if you buy additional licenses, it's always prorated to your annual subscription.
Any more questions? How much is a single license typically?
Again, it depends. It all depends on, are you buying the budgeting module? Are you buying just financial reporting? It really depends. I'd be happy to go over the price list in detail if you'd be interested in that. I'd have no problem with doing that. I can stay on the call if you like, and we can continue that conversation if you'd like.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, thank you for attending our webinar. I'd also like to thank Christine here for presenting for us today. Again, we do have a quick webinar feedback form that's in the chat, and we would love it if you could take a minute out of your day to fill it in. I hope you all have a great day, and we hope to see you again soon at one of our upcoming webinars.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.